all you could hear stuff around you being smashed and crashed. Huge things that you would think would never move, and they were being thrown around like it was a toy. It was devastating. The power of the water, it'll eat you up in a second.
The most frightening moment would be the concern that you have for your children, making sure that they were okay.
We didn't know what to do. It was terrifying.
We were actually without power for 4 weeks. It was the whole town of Scotch Plains without power. It became too cold where we couldn't even stay in the house.
We were freezing cold, and we would sleep in the car.
With the heat on, shut it off once the car got warm enough. That's how we were able to fall asleep.
You couldn't really ignore what was going on around you. You really just see how much everyone cared for each other in this community.
The dangers of Mother Nature, you don't know where it's going to hit or how it's going to hit.
So you just have to prepare yourself mentally. Being that you don't know the outcome, you can be prepared for whatever does happen.
We had an EF5 tornado as devastating as they come.
You can't go back to who you were when you experienced such a trauma. It changes you fundamentally as a person. Because I'd never seen a tornado, it never occurred to me that this big, massive thing with no definitive boundaries was a tornado. And so we ran down into the shelter and locked it. We had not even been down there a minute. You could hear people screaming. It just sounds like this really loud train coming through.
We had a damaged path that was a half-mile wide. And within that half mile, it was total destruction. There was very little left.
With an autistic child, the most we can do is prepare the best we can, educate ourselves, and have faith. The worst part for us was that my daughter's asthmatic, and in all the panic, she was having a really bad asthma attack. I didn't have any way to get my daughter a breathing treatment. You think, I'll pack a bag and keep it by the door. It never occurs to you you're not gonna have that 5 to 10 minutes to go grab the bag. We were left with 3 cans of green beans, 2 diapers, and a bottle of water about like this.
People sometimes don't take action because they have decided that it's not going to happen to me. People in our city have learned that it does happen, and it can happen to us. When people receive warning, they need to take action.
At one point, we drove underneath the smoke, and the smoke was blocking out the sun. You could see just this giant cloud of smoke just rapidly approaching our home. I knew that was not a good sign. My dad said, the house burned down, everything is lost. I saw this as a definite end to my childhood.
For the average person, the sensation that they're going to experience during a fire is often overwhelming. Their eyes begin to burn, their heart rate increases, the trees around their homes begin to catch fire, parts of their homes begin to melt, they begin to panic.
It was monstrous. For my family, it was, how do we rebuild everything that we've lost? How do we find a normalcy again? And how do we make somewhere else our home?
Interesting. That's on the FEMA website, just talking about 3 storms that entered people's lives. And I lived in Kansas for a season, and we had those sirens go off when a tornado comes. You know, we hate hurricane season, and you know, when a hurricane comes, you see it for a week. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and you're like sick and tired, but you at least have like 4, 5, 6 days to prepare. When a tornado comes, you literally sometimes have 30 seconds, a minute. Sometimes it's not even that. It's like the sirens are going off, and here comes the freight train, and it's literally some of the places that we saw afterwards were, you know, just completely leveling shopping malls, and it looks like a war zone, and there's no way to prepare for that. Except having the bunker, you know, the storm shelter, these different things. But even then, like she said, you think that you've got time. You'll have 5 minutes to grab that bag and the, you know, the medicine, the whatever. You got to be ready, because you may only have seconds. You may only have seconds. This second half, this afternoon, we're going to be talking about shelter, defense, and community. Shelter, defense, and community. And I gave you a handout, and I intended actually to give it to you this as you came in, and I forgot, and I apologize for that. And on that handout, it has some of the things that we talked about earlier. Did everybody get one? Does everybody need a handout? Raise your hand if you need one. They've got some. There's a handout. It says, Making Yourself Ready Resources. Making Yourself Ready Resources. So these are some of the things that we talked about. These are some of the lists that we talked about. I've got the financial survival kit and some of the things that were talked about there. There's the FFAC, which is the Emergency Financial First Aid Kit, which is wise. It's basically getting a printed form. I didn't talk about it, but you have a link there for FEMA. A printed form of all your financial, personal documentation, like get a photocopy of your driver's license, of your passport, of a mortgage, of the deed, and all those things. Because in the event that, for example, I'm trying to renew my homeowner's insurance, and they're asking me for my wind mitigation. I'm like, oh yeah, I got it. I can't find it. And it's like thousands of dollars more unless I have this stinking piece of paper that says that I qualify for whatever. So you need to have those pieces and have it basically in a paper form in the event that all digital copies are destroyed. That was the other thing I was going to say. What happens if you no longer can use your phone? But maybe other people can. Maybe your phone just is lost or destroyed. How many phone numbers do you have by memory? Okay, some of you are a lot. I'm on speed dial. I used to have tons of phone numbers memorized. Now I have my wife's number memorized and my parents' number memorized, and that's about it. So that's a good thing to know. Because what happens if the phone's gone? What happens if you lose your computer or your phone or your tablet or whatever? Do you know can you get in touch with people? So thinking for that's one of those things that Emergency Financial First Aid Kit, that's what it talks about there, and it tells you what to do. The barter economy, that's that list that I talked about, items that are probably going to be useful in a barter economy should we go there with our $27 trillion in debt. $7 trillion were added to the debt in the last 4 years. $7 trillion. Trillions. We can't even fathom what that is. This is the handout that Missy created, the long-term storage, food storage. That's that next page. There's a couple pages there on the food storage. One of the things, she had a couple websites that I meant to include, and I forgot. So I want to put them on the screen here for you. Here we go. Wait, let's do this. Here we go. And then do this. Come on. Well, I guess it's a white. Okay, it's simply, this is the food calculator telling you how much food. You go to easyprepping.com. If you go to easyprepping.com, you can find it from there. Okay, you don't need to copy on the rest of the URL. It's helpful if you have it, but easyprepping.com. She also used the food comparison at primalsurvivor.net. Primalsurvivor.net. And it shows you the cost comparison. And then the other one that's, if you're going to buy the MRE, the stuff that's already prepackaged, this website at Primal Survivor gives you the bucket brand comparison, how many calories and all that stuff. Remember though, all that, like Daryl said, after 3 days of eating that stuff, he was not feeling great because there's so much junk in them to preserve them for 25 years. So something to consider. One other thing I thought that was interesting, I came across last month, Australia, it has a rice shortage. Now, part of the reason is they get a lot of their rice from, I think it's Vietnam or Cambodia or somewhere, and because of COVID, they've shut down some of the rice fields. So I don't know if it's going to affect us, but Australia is concerned that by December, they won't be able to get rice. Just like, well, that's weird. But think about the impact of COVID on so many aspects we don't even think about. And then here's this, I love this. This is the debt clock. $27 trillion as of this morning. $27,5,448,705,016. Debt per citizen of the United States, $81,000 per citizen. That's our debt when we spread it around. Don't you feel better now? Anyway, that's a great, you can go to usdebtclock.org and you can see that. Unless we curb that debt, hyperinflation is coming. That's how they pay for the debt, hyperinflation, because then the money's cheap. They pay it back. I can't remember the actual numbers. I had it written down earlier. 2% inflation basically means your money is worth half of it in 20 years. Okay? In 20 years, your money, if you just left it in the bank, is worth half. The buying power is half every 20 years. At 3%, sorry, it's every 35 years. At 3%, it's every 20 years. So the Fed wants to have about 3% as their target for inflation. In the 70s, those of you that remember the stagflation and stuff, we had 12 and 15% inflation. And of course, like I said, if we don't take care of the debt, we're going to have hyperinflation. All right, so this segment, I did find my German marks that are, pieces of paper that are worthless. But they're valuable to me to show what, just like your greenback is going to be worthless one day. So, just a reminder. All right. So that takes us to the, going back to that one here. How we're going to do it. Shelter. Shelter and water. The beautiful thing here in Florida is that we've got water all around us. But you do need to have a plan in the case of emergency for water, right? So for hurricanes, you get bottled water. You fill up the bathtub. You know that you can, in a bad case scenario, you can drink the pool water. You might want to filter it and some things. But what else? What happens when that goes out? You're supposed to have 1 gallon per water per person per day. That's a lot of water when you think about it. If you got a family of 4, that's 4 gallons per day, and that's just for drinking and cooking. You have another ½ gallon for the toilets. And incidentally, if you're on city water, if the water goes out for long enough time and the power's out for long enough time, you'll have stuff coming up your toilet that you don't want coming up your toilet. It starts to back up. And of course, let alone the water maybe not getting shut off. So it's wise to have some filtration options. This is a Sawyer filter, all-in-one filter, and it's something that you can just, I think this one's about $30, and you can basically go to the canal and you can scoop up the water, and you literally, you connect it all together. There's this little thing here, goes on the end, and you can literally just, this end, you just literally drink right out of it. It filters all the water, and you don't taste it. It's pretty amazing. There's actually another one called a Life Straw. These are they retail for $20. You can usually find them. They're usually like 17 or so on Amazon. It's just basically like a straw. I don't open it because I can use it for barter. But it's, like I said, it's about 17, 18 bucks. You can find them on sale, sometimes as cheap as $12. And literally, it's like a straw, and you could go to the canal and just suck the water right out. It's good for, it removes 99.9999, 4 nines past the decimal, of waterborne bacteria and waterborne protozoan cysts, and it does everything you need. Filters a minimum of 264 gallons. This one does like 1 million gallons. Okay, in perspective. This one's Sawyer, SAWYER, and they have one that's a size larger than this and a size smaller. This is called Life Straw. There's another knockoff on Amazon I saw that's about 20% cheaper. But this is a great little tool. I have it in my bag in case I'm out and I'm stranded. I can drink just about any water that I need to. It's part of being prepared. Other things regarding water, having a well. You know, some of you have a well for irrigation, for example. Here in Florida, the great thing is, you go down about 6 feet, depending on where you live, you got water. You just need a way to filter it. The deeper you go, the more the ground filters it for you, but you could take water and you literally strain it through like pantyhose or even a sock. You'll take out most of the solids. It'll still look kind of nasty. If you know, people say you got to boil it. You actually only need to get it to 140 to 160 degrees for about a minute, and that will kill the bacteria. Trying to get it all the way to 212 takes a lot of extra energy, a lot of extra power that you may not have. But the thing is, how do you know if it's at 160? You know, between 140 and 160, you're going to knock it out. The hotter it is, the shorter the time needs to be. And but how do you know it's 160 unless you also have a thermometer? So, you know, there's these things that you got to kind of prepare for and have a plan for. All right. So then, one other thing, as long as we're talking about food, you know, if you own a house, if you have any yard at all, plant some fruit trees. That's a great. My wife and I, when we moved into our house, we immediately planted some avocados and some mangoes. And you can plant different types of mangoes so that you get 2 different seasons, or even 3 different seasons of mangoes. So you can get mangoes, you know, for several months. Same thing with avocados. Avocados are great because you get fats. The fats, remember, you need fats. They're often forgotten. We think that they're bad. No, the fats, the good fats, are really good for you. You need to get those, and those are often omitted in a survival situation. We planted some cashew trees, which is where you get the cashew nuts from, but you also get cashew apples. And they're interesting. You can grow them here in South Florida. It kind of looks like a little pear, kind of orangish, yellowish, and then it's got the nut on the bottom. So the nut has protein and fat, and then of course you got the carbs in the apple. So it's a really kind of a whole food. We planted one. 2 years later, we got almost 100 cashew apples from it in 2 years. So, you know, thinking through, you know, it all, of course, depends on the soil and all those things, but there are lots of options out there. And you can do, like Missy was saying, there's a lot of plants and things that you can grow in South Florida that are edible. I have a whole book here. Haven't read it, but I've got it just in case. Florida's edible wild plants. So that, hey, you know what? We're having salad tonight. This one is edible leaves of the tropics. You got to get things that are specific to South Florida, you know, to a tropical environment, because like Missy said, you can't grow certain things, and certain things you're not going to find. What works in California may not work here, so you got to find things that are appropriate. But I saw these on Amazon, you know what? I put it in my prepper box. In my prepper box I started several years ago, and I bought the book, I throw it in the box, actually the box is right here, and I throw it in the box, and then I forget about it. If I need it, I got it. When I need it, I can't get it from Amazon, most likely. So it's just those things to be thinking about. I picked up, along those same lines, home preserving. I don't know how to can, but I got a book that shows me how. To really know what you're doing, though, you obviously need to get some of the supplies, and my plan was to do that, but I just haven't got around to it. I saw these books at Walmart, I think. It's either Walmart or Costco. And I was like, oh, that looks good. It's $12 or $18. The Survival Manual, 33 skills that will get you out alive. Okay. You know, I picked these up because I'm just like, you know what? 10, 20 bucks goes in my prepper box. And then I've got some options. This one, Alternative Medicine, the Christian Handbook. And it's talking about different herbs and things. You know, most of the drugs and medication that we take they're just basically stronger versions of herbs and things. They're really, the scientists, they've combined them in a certain way. But for example, there's a lot of things you can do with Epsom salts. That if you get an infection, you know, on your leg, or, you know, you got something that's there, Epsom salt baths and different things. It takes longer to heal than taking the antibiotic. But if you have that, if you don't have the antibiotic, you got to go back to these other ways. And so there's lots of different little things like that. My wife is really into essential oils. We've got vials and vials of the stuff. And the Essential Desk Reference on essential oils, and there's a prescription in here for you name it, okay? They've got an oil for it, and my wife has it. And basically, so we've got it. We got a book. We got something that we can go to when, I don't know, there might be a day where I might not be able to go to the internet, but I've got the book just as a backup. And yeah, sometimes it's fun and interesting to read those. I also picked up old books that talk about old skills. This one's canning, freezing, curing, smoking meat, fish, and game. If you don't have a refrigerator, do you know how to either can the meat or smoke the meat? Remember, for centuries, they didn't have refrigeration. And yet they knew what to do to help the meat, preserve the meat for days or even weeks. It's possible to do that. It's possible to do that, but you just can't put a bunch of salt on it. You can't just assault your meat and make it last a week. You've got to know the proper ways to do that. And once again, I haven't read it, but I've got a book. This one, Spinning and Weaving, Midwifing. Not going to need that, but I have it in case somebody needs it. Wagon making, corn shucking, mountain crafts and foods, hog dressing, log cabin building, planting by the signs, snake lore, moonshining, and other affairs of plain living. So, anyway, once again, I find a book and I'm like, you know what, I don't have time to read it now, but I might be of use. I'm going to throw it in my prepper box, and that way I'm going to be ready for when the time comes.